In your opinion, what would you think would be the biggest change, if anything, from now until the next estimate that you release before session?
I think a lot of it depends on what you and I and individual consumers and businesses, what we feel safe. People's lack of economic engagement is more directed out of concern and or fear than it is of government mandated shutdowns.
The state is now projecting a near $5 billion budget shortfall because of the pandemic. Back in October, the forecast was for a $3 billion surplus. And because of COVID-19, the state capitol is closed to the public right now. Our John Engel digs into concerns about a lack of transparency and the power of special interests if it remains closed when lawmakers return in January.
Votes are cast here inside the Texas state capitol, but it's 2 blocks down the road where the sausage is really made.
What happens at those office buildings a block away?
Everything happens there, John.
At 9th and Congress, legislation is forged by lobbyists and lawmakers long before it reaches the legislature. If the Capitol stays closed to the public this coming legislative session, these voices won't be heard, giving potentially more power to special interests behind closed doors.
It's the only place in the state where everybody comes together. And if we lose that, our political culture changes.
Struggling oil prices and reduced revenue caused by the pandemic will likely make the fight for funding even more fierce.
We're now looking at roughly a negative $4.6 billion in the current budgeted cycle.
Lobbyist Bill Miller is working for pro sports franchises like the Houston Texans, trying to get them back on the field through conversations with state health officials, which you don't hear.
If I can't be there or you can't be there, we're still going to talk, but it's going to be less evident. And it's not, and people are going to they're going to wonder more about what's going on and how it's working.
It'll be up to state leaders to balance public safety with public participation.
If we lose the public participation in public policy, I assure you, lobbyists like me won't be going anywhere. We will still be here regardless of whether or not you're here.
For State of Texas, I'm John Engel.
Texas does have a rainy day fund to help with emergencies and other potential disasters. Before the pandemic, though, it was estimated the account could have hit $15 billion this year. But the fund, created after the oil bust of the 1980s, gets its money through oil and gas taxes. With global demand down for oil and companies cutting production, that will affect how much is in the fund. In May, the comptroller told our partners at the Texas Tribune that the fund was down to $10 billion. The rainy day fund has been used to cover budget shortfalls in the past. 100 Texas mayors have sent a letter to the Texas congressional delegation. They're asking for a streamlined process to get the next round of coronavirus relief money sent directly to Texas cities. Right now, cities smaller than 500,000 people have to wait for the feds to funnel the money through the state and counties to distribute it to cities.
It's small cities, medium-sized, large cities, even cities that were over 500,000. You know, Texas is united and our country is united. Mayors in states all across the country are now working to try to get this federal stimulus so that these cities can continue to lead in this economic recovery.
A group of Democratic lawmakers from the Texas House and Senate are calling for the removal of 7 Confederate memorials on the Texas state capitol grounds. They include statues and portraits of Confederate soldiers. The coalition also wants the John H. Reagan building in the Capitol complex to be renamed. He was a Confederate officer. In a letter to members of the State Preservation Board, which is in charge of the Capitol grounds, the lawmakers write, just as conversations have emerged on criminal justice reform, law enforcement priorities, and race relations, it's time for the Confederate commemorations to go.
Why are we honoring these people? These are people that fought against the basic tenets of the United States, that all men are created equal. They're not patriots. So more than anything, we're here to correct the record and set the history record straight. There's so many people we could honor and glorify on the Capitol grounds.
The struggle to stay on top of outbreaks in South Texas may have bigger implications for all of us. Just ahead, how it could impact funeral homes and cremation services statewide. Plus, a new drug combo to treat COVID-19 to be tested in Texas. What's being mixed with Remdesivir and showing promise?